Mercedes-Benz is a company often portrayed as being deeply conservative, though in fact no other manufacturer has such a record of innovation. Today the brand is bold, forward-thinking and younger in feel, attributes very much in evidence in the third generation version of its smallest A-Class model, now pitched more directly against sporty premium compact family hatches like Audi's A3 and BMW's 1 Series. It's the first truly desirable small Mercedes, but it won't be the last. Not every automaker can produce a compact premium family hatchback, but every one of them would like to. The limiting factor, of course, is brand equity, the badge on the bonnet factor that sugars the pill for executive downsizers and provides the incentive for Ford, Vauxhall and Peugeot people to better themselves. Only a handful of manufacturers have it, but even those that do often cast envious eyes towards the instant driveway credibility that comes with the three-pointed star and a car like this one, the third generation Mercedes A-Class. You'd think then that this market segment would be tailor-made for this Stuttgart maker, and perhaps it would have been if we'd had a sporty, low-slung contender like this one from the start, but we didn't. What Mercedes originally offered us in first and second generation A-Class models was a tall, boxy and rather frumpy looking thing that was rarely even considered in both press and public comparisons between the two premium hatches that should have been its closest rivals, BMW's 1 Series and Audi's A3. Yes, the original A-Class with its high-set sandwich floor construction was clever, but clever doesn't cut it in a market dominated by cool sportiness. So Mercedes has started again with this car, and with this third generation version launched here in the autumn of 2012 has delivered exactly what buyers in the compact premium hatch segment seem to want. A car that no longer goes its own way, but instead has a smart, sporty and conventional design created specifically to beat its two main rivals at their own game. Can it do just that? Let's find out. If, like me, you've got used to regarding the A-Class as something of an also-ran when it comes to the driving enjoyment on offer in this segment, then a bit of mental adjustment might be necessary before taking the wheel of this third generation model. Now, it's not that we haven't had sporting A-Classes before. On the contrary, in the first generation range, a twin-engine 250 brake horsepower A45 Amg variant was developed for presentation to the McLaren Mercedes Formula 1 team. And in the second generation range, a rapid 193 brake horsepower 2-litre petrol turbo was initially offered. But giving an early A-Class more power and stiffer suspension always felt a bit ridiculous. It wasn't that kind of car. Here, it's different. What I expected was a shrunken Mercedes B-Class. The two models share the same platform and many of the same mechanicals after all. But that wouldn't have provided a driving experience good enough to take on rivals of the calibre of Audi's A3 and BMW's 1 Series. So what we've got instead is something rather unexpected. A car that even in its humblest forms feels sharp and taut, to the point where it actually may not suit buyers of the previous generation who've been used to a soft and friendly feel. The standard suspension, even in its baseline comfort spec, is after all extremely firm, which may put a few people off. You certainly feel that on a typical British B-road, where the springs beneath you feel constantly busy, bumps and ripples your constant companion, especially if, perhaps rather unwisely, you've opted for a stiffened, lowered setup like that fitted to the car I'm driving here, or worse still, an AMG-tuned suspension package that will be found on the sportiest variants. But the payoff for all of this comes when you start to do something that won't be second nature to many A-Class buyers, namely to start to throw the thing about. Let's be clear about this. If you're shopping in the affordable realms of the premium compact hatch segment, there's nothing that feels as good as this to drive. The brakes are great, the gear change is accurate, and the driving position set 174mm lower than the previous generation model, is spot on. But none of this is what you'll remember after a spirited drive in this car. No, what sticks in your mind is the way that you can really lean on this car as you enter a corner, confident in the knowledge that there'll be grip and turn-in of quite astonishing tenaciousness, matched with body control that's unsurpassed by anything else in this class. The torque vectoring that's built into the stability control system helps here, seamlessly applying slight brake pressure to the outside rear wheel during tight cornering to help get the power down exactly where it's needed. The electromechanical power steering, which facilitates a reasonably tight 11-metre turning circle, isn't bad either. In fact, it's better, in my opinion, than the optional direct steer setup you can specify, which is supposed to weight up as you go faster. Not that you'll be going too fast in an entry-level A-Class. The baseline A180 CDI diesel offers a meagre 109 PS, whether you order it in 1.5-litre manual or 1.8-litre automatic form. Still, rest to 62 miles an hour in 11.3 seconds on the way to a top speed of 118 miles an hour should be sufficient for most. If it isn't, then you can opt to get the 1.8-litre diesel upped in terms of power output to 136 PS if you go for the A200 CDI model that I've been driving here. In this form, the rest to 62 mile an hour sprint time is dropped by a couple of seconds and the maximum speed rises to around 130 miles an hour. And these are figures pretty much unaffected whether you opt for the car in manual or automatic forms. Why? Well, because the automatic in question is the state-of-the-art 7G DCT twin clutch unit. It's one of those clever automatic gearboxes able to select the next gear before you've even left the last one. And that's one of the reasons why with an Autobox, an A-Class will be even cleaner and more economical than a 6-speed manual transmission counterpart. Now, this Autobox features economy and sport modes, plus a further manual option if you want to use these steering wheel mounted paddle shifters. And it's a transmission that's the only choice if you want to opt for the pokiest diesel A-Class model, the 170 PS 2.1 litre A220 CDI. Petrol people, meanwhile, are mainly limited to 1.6 litre power. Either the 122 PS version of that engine fitted to the entry-level A180, which is good enough for rest to 62 in 9.2 seconds on the way to 126 miles an hour, or the same engine pushed up to 156 PS in the A200 model, which manages rest to 62 in 8.4 seconds on the way to 139 miles an hour. Now, beyond that, the only two options are the minority interest auto-only A250 engineered by AMG variant, which uses a 211 PS 2-litre petrol power plant, or a car that's not only the most desirable A-Class, but probably one of the most desirable compact hot hatches ever made, the A45 Amg, an all-wheel drive shopping rocket with a hand-built 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine that gets you from rest to 60 supercar style in just 4.5 seconds. With 350 PS on tap, this top A-Class should really put the frighteners on rivals like BMW's M135i and Audi's S3. The important thing, though, is that this car is good even without the AMG treatment. At last, a small Mercedes you can really look forward to driving. And when was the last time you could really say that? If you think of clever, forward-thinking British design as something belonging to your father's time, then check out one of these. Modern, extrovert, radical, this third-generation A-Class is everything its predecessors weren't, and was penned by Englishman Mark Featherstone, a graduate of Coventry University's School of Transport Design, and the man who designed the Mercedes SLS AMG Gullwing supercar. Radicality, of course, is something that generations of A-Class buyers are already familiar with. First and second generation A-Class models were, after all, pioneering in their own way, thanks to an innovative sandwich floor construction designed to accommodate batteries or other equipment for models with alternative drivetrains that in the event never made it beyond the prototype stage. More importantly, the layout meant that in a violent frontal impact, the engine and transmission would slide under the floor beneath the pedals rather than entering the passenger compartment. Now, it all sounded great on paper, but it also necessitated a frumpy, tall, upright design that most buyers in the premium compact hatch segment simply didn't like. So instead, with this Mark III model, we've a design that's longer, wider and lower, with the same kind of bluff front end and high shoulder line that you'll find on a rival BMW 1 Series, but created as part of a more cohesive look, with sharply defined edges and tautly drawn convex and concave surfaces that seem to constantly change as the light catches them. It's a design that's extrovert in its finishing, in a way that we've seen from niche market sporting Mercedes models like the SLS and the CLS, but never from a mainstream design like this one. Now, that'll mean it'll divide opinion, of course, but what you can't argue with is that there's a certain self-confidence to this car. The pronounced front end has a prominent V-shape, with the three-pointed star set in a two-louver grille above three lower air intakes in the bottom part of the bumper. Along the flanks, where influences apparently came from sand dunes, winter landscapes and even Concorde, a rising belt line enhances the wedge-shaped profile, with another line flowing from the midpoint of the front wheel arch to create powerful shoulder muscles at the rear. The intention being to create a coupe-like profile set off by a rear spoiler that neatly hides all the aerials. And inside, well, if anything, the cabin treatment is even bolder than the bodywork. This yet another interior inspired from the world of aviation. Your eye immediately drawn to these 5 circular air vents, styled to resemble jet engines and finished in cool touch electroplated metal trim. Ahead of you, through the 3-spoke multifunction steering wheel, lies an instrument cluster made up of 2 large round dials, each with a smaller dial set within. Perhaps the most interesting design touch, though, is what looks like an iPad mounted on the upper part of the centre console, but which is in fact an integrated infotainment system, able to sync seamlessly with most smartphones. What else? Well, a little unusually, the dash doesn't sweep round into the doors, a design quirk that's slightly less noticeable if, as here, you've specified the lovely optional stitched leather upper dash covering that really does lift the cabin. Another optional touch I really like are the illuminated sill plates for the doors that welcome you as you step in. All-round visibility is better than the low-slung driving position and thick pillars might lead you to expect, though vision rearwards is slightly compromised by the small rear screen. The materials quality doesn't have the hewn from granite feel you get in an Audi, but it is a step up from a BMW 1 Series. And overall, this is probably the most interesting cabin in this segment, a classy effort with plenty of showroom feel-good factor. As for space in the back, well, the curve of the rear side windows and the amount to which the rear wheel arches intrude into the door openings means that getting in and out isn't quite as easy as it would be in, say, a Focus or a Golf. Once installed inside, though, even a couple of 6-footers should be reasonably comfortable, thanks to the scalloped sections in the backs of the front seats. I wouldn't, though, put too much store in Mercedes' claim that this is a 5-seater, a statement that seems to be rather at odds with the way that the cabin back here has been very distinctly styled to suggest accommodation for 2. 3 kids will probably be fine, though. And the boot, well, these heavily styled rear light clusters necessitate a rather narrow opening, but once you get your stuff inside, then there's nearly as much space as you'd find on a rival A3 or BMW 1 Series. 341 litres with the rear seats in place, 1,157 litres with the 60/40 split rear bench pushed forward. Now, there's not quite as much versatility here as owners of original A-Class models will remember. The rear seats don't remove for a start, and when folded they don't go completely flat. That's one reason why total luggage capacity in this case is 94 litres down on the second generation A-Class model. But having said all that, you can fit items of more than a metre wide between the wheel arch housings, and there's space for extra smaller items, perhaps more valuable items, under the boot floor so that they can be kept away from prying eyes. So, what's the premium these days to own a premium badged compact family hatch rather than a comparably sized and priced mainstream brand Focus or Astra type model? Well, a starting point for A-Class ownership that's very tempting at around £19,000 suggests that the answer to that question might be as little as £1,000 or so. But that would be for a stripped out entry-level variant that very few potential buyers would want. It's more realistic to base comparisons on an A-Class trimmed at least to SE spec, in which case the difference to a comparable version of your local sales rep's runabout will probably be between £2,000 to £2,500, depending on the variant that you're looking at. But of course, very few potential buyers will be considering this car as an alternative to a Focus or an Astra. There'll be people who'll already have the glossy brochures for models like BMW's 1 Series, Audi's A3, maybe even wannabe premium contenders like Volvo's V40 or Alfa Romeo's Giulietta piling up in their in-trays. The Alfa Romeo would save you a couple of thousand, but you'd lose that when it came to resale time with the Alfa's lower residuals and higher running costs. A better alternative is the Volvo V40. This would save you £1,500 to £2,000 over an A-Class and offers impressively low running costs. But it doesn't quite have the cachet that, of course, is part and parcel of owning a Mercedes. You get some of that, of course, by opting for either of this model's two most direct rivals, BMW's 1 Series and Audi's A3 Sportback. Entry-level petrol variants of both these cars are actually slightly pricier than this Mercedes, but with pokier variants or with a diesel, the situation reverses to create the slight premium for A-Class ownership you'd probably expect to have to pay. If, having considered all of this, you decide that an A-Class is indeed what you want, then you might appreciate a few pointers to help you navigate your way around the 5-door only model lineup, mainly priced in the £20,000 to £25,000 bracket. Properly spec'd versions of the entry-level petrol A180, in other words, the sort you can easily sell on, start at the bottom end of that spectrum. But it's probably worth considering finding another £1,000 on top of the cost of one of those to get yourself into the far more frugal 109 PS A180 CDI diesel. And there's a further £1,000 on top of that if you want the extra overtaking punch of the 136 PS A200 CDI diesel that I've been trying here. Either way, you can order your car with the 7-speed automatic gearbox that I've been using for a £1,500 premium on top of the cost of the model you choose. Now, whichever mainstream A-Class model you choose, 1.6 or 2 litre petrol, 1.5, 1.8 or 2.1 litre CDI diesel, you should find that your car's decently equipped. For around £20,000 or so, I'd like to have seen features like auto wipers, a DAB digital radio and a media interface to allow the connection in of portable devices. I'd like to have seen all that fitted as standard, but you can't complain too loudly when on a Mercedes even the entry-level tally runs to things like auto headlamps, power heated mirrors, air conditioning, seat height adjustment, a hill start assist system on manual models to stop you drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and a decent quality 6-speaker audio system with a tablet style fascia display, USB and AUX in points and Bluetooth connection for your mobile phone. That's certainly one thing you'd expect to have to pay extra for in a car like this. Another is a feature called Collision Prevention Assist. It's based around a radar mounted on the top of the windscreen here that constantly, as you drive, scans the road ahead for potential collision hazards. Now, if one is detected, then it'll give you both visual and audio warnings at the same time as priming the adaptive brake assist system for the most instant response as soon as the driver hits the pedal. Now, the system also guards against rear-end accidents at speeds of over 90 miles an hour. In other words, it's very clever indeed. Tests by Mercedes have shown that this whole setup will completely eradicate around 20% of all nose-to-tail accidents and decrease their severity in a further 25% of cases. Another clever standard feature is the Attention Assist, which is a setup that monitors your driving reactions at the beginning of every journey and then continues to monitor them to try and detect signs of drowsiness. And that's something it'll then respond to, if necessary, by prompting you to stop for a restorative coffee. More familiar safety kit includes the usual electronic assistance for stability and traction control, plus ABS brakes that automatically prime themselves in wet weather. If all of that really isn't enough to keep you out of the hedge, then you'll be glad of no fewer than 7 standard airbags, including a driver's knee airbag, plus Isofix child seat fastenings, anti-whiplash head restraints, a deformable steering column, and a pedestrian-friendly bonnet. But of course, you can go an awful lot further than that with a whole range of optional safety equipment that once upon a time was the preserve of much larger Mercedes models. Take this car, for example. It has Distronic Plus adaptive cruise control to keep you a safe distance automatically behind the car in front at cruising speeds. Then there's a lane tracking package that gives you blind spot assist to stop you dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another driver, and lane keeping assist to keep dozy drivers within their lanes on the highway. It also has a camera mounted on the top of the windscreen to picture speed limit signs as you pass and display them on the dash. It has an intelligent bi-xenon headlamp system able to automatically dip its beam at night in the face of oncoming traffic and vary its beam and lighting pattern to suit the kind of road that you're driving on. On top of that, there's the clever pre-safe anticipatory system that senses an emergency situation early on and instantly, automatically pre-tensions the seatbelt, closes the electric windows, and, if they've been fitted, positions the electric sunroof and the electric seats into the optimum position for crash survival. Of course, just because you've survived an accident doesn't mean that you'll be in a position to think clearly and alert the emergency services. But if you found another couple of thousand to specify the command online with media interface setup that I have here, then you won't have to. This is a package that will automatically, using your phone, call the emergency services, the nearest call centre, and give them your exact GPS coordinates. The package also includes a larger 7-inch colour tablet screen via which, using voice or button, you can control an HDD 3D satellite navigation system and a 10 gigabyte music setup. The package also includes access to Mercedes online services via which you can access Facebook, Twitter and internet radio. And you'll be able to download a series of integrated Mercedes apps that'll enable you to do things like access Google local search and weather, and maybe even to download a preset route that you've accessed on your home computer using Google Maps. Other nice-to-have features include a huge panoramic glass sliding sunroof, an 11-speaker Harman Kardon surround sound audio system, and leather trim for the seats and upper dash that really lifts the cabin. I also love these illuminated door sill plates as you step in. And I've been given plenty of help here with parking, with a colour reverse parking camera and a park assist with Parktronic system that actually locates spaces for you and can automatically steer you into them. Mercedes has pulled out all the stops to make the A-Class one of the cheapest models to run in its class. Hence the Blue Efficiency tag applied to models across the range. It has some redoubtable opposition, of course, not only from the likes of BMW and Audi, but also from a resurgent Volvo. But this Mercedes makes all the right numbers, with direct injection and turbocharging applied across the range, plus an eco start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Further efficiency measures include an economy setting for the automatic gearbox, intelligent management of engine ancillaries like the alternator, the oil feed and the water pump, low rolling resistance tyres, a display that encourages more economical driving, an adjustable radiator shutter, and a Camtronic engine load management system for the petrol 1.6 that reduces throttling losses under a partial load. This alone can improve fuel consumption by up to 10%. Now, you'd expect the result of all this to be a frugal set of running cost figures, and you'd be right. The A180 CDI diesel, for example, manages 74.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, provided you order it in manual 1.5 litre form. And even this punchier A200 CDI manages 62.8 miles to the gallon on the same reading. Petrol people get a also fairly impressive list of combined cycle figures. Go for the A180 and you're looking at 51.4 miles to the gallon. Go for the A200 and you're looking at 49.6, and even the automatic only 211 PS A250 returns 44.1 miles to the gallon. Emissions are low too, with the manual A180 CDI variant nudging under the magic 100 grams per kilometre threshold with 98 grams per kilometre as a reading, though if you order it in automatic form it does just edge over the 100 grams per kilometre point. If you go for the A200 CDI diesel that I've got here, then you're looking at 118 grams per kilometre. Petrol people, meanwhile, will find the A180 managing 129 grams per kilometre, the A200 with 134 grams per kilometre, and the A250 managing 148 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Well, residuals should be strong, as you'd expect from Mercedes, as long as you don't go mad on the options list. The car I'm driving here has had its asking price nearly doubled by extras that won't add a huge amount to its value when resale time comes. As you'd expect, the Mercedes Aftercare package is comprehensive, with a 3-year unlimited mileage warranty. There's an assist service indicator on the dash so that you know exactly when a garage visit is needed, and there's also a service care package that helps you spread the cost of routine servicing, guaranteeing the cost of parts and labour for up to 4 services, and including the cost of recommended service replacement items like spark plugs, brake fluid, an air filter, fuel filter and screen wash. Insurance, well, that ranges for mainstream models between groups 15 and 24, though if you go for the pokier petrol A250, the groupings rise a bit. They're between 33 and 34. Strange as it might seem, returning to a more mainstream position with this A-Class might be a bolder step for Mercedes than the original design of its radical predecessor. That car was a quirky choice you wouldn't really have judged against anything else, and which consequently didn't really have to prove anything. This one, in contrast, is pitched directly against prestige brand rivals who've been perfecting the whole premium compact family hatch thing for up to 20 years. A tough brief for a car that in every way is a clean sheet of paper design. So, has starting afresh in the compact car segment really worked this time round for the 3-pointed star? Previous A-Class owners might not think so. If, on the other hand, the objective here was for Mercedes to distill all that's exciting, fresh and modern about its brand into one small package, I don't think it could have done much better. Those who can afford the asking prices and don't mind the firm ride will find this hatch sporty, self-assured and possessive of a feel-good factor that really does make you feel special if you've spec'd your car right. Which of course is exactly what owning a car of this kind should be all about.